Welcome to episode number 252, The Journey of 1,000 Miles. I'm your host, Damon Soka. Today we are going to take that journey, a roller coaster ride of more than 1,000 miles. They say that type of a journey begins with the first step, and that first step came in the spring of 2019. I'd been spiritually troubled for a couple of weeks. You know that feeling that the Lord needs you to take the step into the dark, but you don't know what you will find kind of feeling? Yeah, that's the one. It had taken hold of my wife as well. We knew that the Lord wanted us to do something, but neither was sure what it was. After struggling for a few weeks, we finally said that we would do anything the Lord desired. And you know what happens when you finally say, whatever it takes. My day at work the next day wasn't unusual in any way. Many of you know that I work in commercial construction as a simulation expert or planning expert. We use 3D tools to simulate the construction of a building, and then we work through those issues. And my day was proceeding as it always did. About midday, I received a call from someone I had never met. He was a recruiter for a commercial construction company. Now, I get these calls semi-regularly, and I don't often think much of them, especially if they're calling from the East Coast. He stated that the company's name and asked if I would be interested in a regional position on the East Coast. Now, I was working at a smaller contractor in Spokane, Washington at the time, and wasn't entirely interested or sure about it. But then that feeling came again. You said anything. This is anything. You need to pursue this. I thought, well, that was awfully a quick answer. But because I have often been deceived by my depression symptoms and increases of stress, I use a method my wife and I have found helpful in situations of this nature. We would pursue the position. If the Lord desired it, then the position would come about and we would move. We had used this before, and the answer had been no at times, and we had not received the position. So we felt like this was the best methodology at the time. Although this particular time it felt different, we were still not sure of the particular answer, so we moved forward. Part of our insecurity was that the position, again, would reside on the East Coast in Baltimore, Maryland. Now, I had traveled to the East Coast, not Baltimore, but I traveled to the East Coast a couple of times while working for a company that built primarily healthcare. However, my family had only traveled basically as far as Nauvoo, Illinois, and that was only on a vacation. We had only lived as far west or far east as the Salt Lake Valley. We had no clue about the culture, the people, the history, or really any knowledge about living in Maryland. So this was going to be a truly blind move to somewhere where we had no connections. As I pursued the position, it was becoming clear that the move was going to become a real possibility. This was concerning for more than just the blind move. We would be leaving our married children on the West Coast. We would be leaving our extended family there as well. We would be about as isolated as you can get in this world today. When we received the offer, we knew that it was coming. That is when the first miracles came about. We received a plane flight and a hotel to come and search for a home from the new company as part of my moving package. We spent 3 days looking all over northern and western Maryland. At the end of 3 days, we literally had found nothing. At the end of the day, our realtor had just one more house for us to look at, but it was in a town called Randallstown. We did not know it, but this town in Maryland is predominantly African American. That wasn't a problem for us. We had just always lived in places where it was predominantly white. We actually thought it would be good for us, and it turned out that way. The agent didn't think we would necessarily care for the home, but if we wanted to see it before we had to leave the next day, she would set it up for the morning. We drove by that night, and we loved it. We asked for a walkthrough, and it was a wonderful home. We had one concern. My wife, while in Spokane, had become a certified EMT and wanted to continue her service. It just so happened that just outside of the subdivision we had chosen was a volunteer fire station. After we walked through the home, we stopped at this fire station where they were having some type of event. Here, another miracle took place. Those wonderful people took her in and gave her a home, a connection. And yes, they were majority African American. And yes, she is white. I have come to love the African American people for their honest, loving nature, family values, and most of all, their zest for life. What a wonderful people my wife and I met in Maryland. So moving day was upon us. We made the move while marrying off one of our sons in Utah. Now, his miracle wife is a story for another day. We traveled across the northern U.S. during a wonderful summer. We signed papers and moved into the home in August. Mind you, this is 2019. I started work and we found ourselves in a marvelous ward. Things were actually going very well. Now, as a side note, I had developed symptoms of psoriatic arthritis while I had served in the bishopric in Utah about 2007, and I had finally gotten a diagnosis in Spokane and had started some serious treatment. However, the arthritis and a secondary autoimmune similar to lupus, although we don't know exactly what it is, had been giving me serious trouble just before the move. But another miracle was provided in that I was able to accomplish everything for the move without serious difficulty. We arrived in Baltimore and began to settle into work, church, and family life while exploring somewhat a part of the U.S. that is rich in history. And then 2020 came, and with it that now infamous day in March when society began to shut down. COVID had entered the scene. Now, the shutdown and illness wouldn't have been so bad. It would have given me time to get myself healed. Yet the Lord saw fit to bring another step into the darkness. Now, as many of you regularly know, COVID and I do not get along. My first infection, I was sick for several months with severe psoriatic arthritis symptoms, which in turn activated a cycling depression. This was an unexpected step into the dark and had led to a sequence of faith-promoting and trusting moments with the Lord. One benefit was the close down of business, as this did allow for me to be at home and for some healing. However, even with the strongest levels of medication, my body was crippled at times, even resting all day long, unable to work or even move well. I struggled through the rest of the year doing whatever I could to keep my employment. I don't remember much of this time frame. The illness took its toll. The following year, my health was not improving, but I was working, and then my body really collapsed again with another COVID infection. This caused serious issues with my employment, and I could see the writing on the wall with COVID still causing me issues. I was going to lose my job, and the reality of construction is there's no such thing as a sick day. COVID was nothing more than a strong cold for most people, but for me it turned into what has become known as long COVID, a debilitating disease. This caused significant stress in my family and, again, with my employment. We were going to need another miracle. Right about that time, I received a phone call from a contractor in Atlanta. Again, out of the blue, did not know these people. He had seen what I had previously worked in scheduling and wondered if I might be willing to move to Atlanta. Now, I was very hesitant at first, as I wasn't entirely well. However, I did hope that the heat would provide some benefit, as the cold aggravated my symptoms significantly. Now, this job worked out just as the one previous in Baltimore, and we moved to Georgia. For those of you who don't know about Georgia, it is a beautiful state that has the Appalachian Mountains in the north, the Atlantic Ocean on the east, and is a gateway to Florida. I had never been to Georgia at all, and so I thought most of it looked like the swampy bottoms of Louisiana, and the remainder was made up of something similar to upper Louisiana, places I had seen. After several struggles to find a home and a couple of visits to Atlanta, we had a similarly difficult issue finding a home with a similar miracle as in Baltimore, and it ended up on the west side of Georgia with several acres and a large home. We had several family members with us at the time, and so the large home was even a greater miracle for us and something that we needed. I began working in Georgia with a company that mainly provided healthcare facilities and large-scale apartment and office buildings. And that job worked out very well until I had 3 more COVID infections, the last one being the most difficult. The long COVID again caused employment issues, causing me to lose my job for several months. During that time frame, I worked for 2 months at one job but was too sick to continue. After this episode, I thought seriously that I may need to retire early in my career, as I was not going to be able to work. Stress had mounted financially, spiritually, and emotionally. It was during this time frame that I ended up in the hospital. They had no diagnosis for me, but considering my mental health challenges and the stress, I believed that it was a very serious anxiety attack. It was during this chaotic scene that actually another job came forward for me to work. The Lord provided some healing as I went back to work, and I enjoyed that job very much, and things were going very well. My health bounced between, I think I might be able to do this, and I'm not so sure I'm going to be able to make it to the end of the day or the year. And then, as most of you know, my body finally collapsed in June of this year, and I was unable to work for 4 months. I spent almost that entire time frame in bed. My employer was good to me, but they were a little old school, and that simply means being sick for 4 months was going to be an issue with my employment. Here I was, just barely healing from a terrible 4 months, and I was going to be unemployed. I needed a job I could do from home. We didn't know what to do. Thinking that we could reduce some debt, my wife and I thought about pursuing selling our home, and that didn't work. I was able to secure another position with a significant reduction in pay, and that has been interesting for us navigating those tight funds again. Now, that brings us up to today. But why talk about all of this? Two reasons for me, and they're really related. Revelation and miracles are most often seen and recognized after they have occurred, meaning long after they have occurred. We rarely know that we are in the midst of a miracle. The Lord is subtle and consistent in his methodology of using small and simple means. When you get revelation line upon line, you need some time to build a paragraph and then a chapter. Most of the time, we don't see the chapter of Revelation until it's entirely written, and other revelation has already been written. Many times, we don't see the miracle for what it is until the moment it has long passed. As I look back on the last 5 years, I see nothing but miracles, and yet, I can tell you honestly, I did not see that at the time. As I look back, I have an entire set of Revelation novels. My learning, experience, and depth of testimony has expanded dramatically. So why didn't I see it then? Why don't we notice it then? Not sure that I have all the answers, but my answer to this question is pretty simple. When the Lord wants to provide revelation, learning, miracles, and his influential mark on our lives, he places us in difficult circumstances so that we need revelation and need miracles. The Lord just doesn't give us revelation. He gives us experience where the revelation is needed and the miracles are sought out. We live out revelation, learning, and miracles. They are not theoretical concepts that we can read and learn. They must be experienced. We must live revelation and miracles, not just be taught about them. Living them etches them into our heart, and we become, through the Spirit, the sons and daughters of the Lord, that the Lord desires us to be. So then why do we suffer with mental and emotional illness? Most often it is because we are in the midst of a training program. The Lord is seeking us out by allowing us to be placed in a condition where he can reveal to us his will and mold us to his character through a living revelations and miracles. As we live them with the Lord, he will mold our hearts. Now, a word of caution, just because the Lord places us in difficult circumstances doesn't mean we will automatically learn and become like him. Laman and Lemuel are a testament to living under difficult circumstances and learning nothing from the events. When we come to those difficult to live moments in time, the difference between seeing revelation and miracles and simply living a difficult life is the Lord and how we interact with him. If we are seeking the Lord, we will find that he works in our lives. This means we need to truly seek him. If we don't do so, or we do so half-heartedly, we will find that our seeking provides no real value, and that we are simply angry at life all the time. If we are not seeing small miracles in our lives and consistent revelation, then we should probably evaluate why. Sometimes it's just a problem of vision that can be fixed by asking to see that revelation and the changes in our lives and those miracles. Sometimes we are hardening because long-term trials are difficult to manage emotionally. We feel we're being stretched to our very limit, and that doesn't feel much like learning. It actually feels awful. We can confuse those difficult, awful feelings with the idea that the Lord does not care for us or love us, and we can at times retire from him. The reality of the Lord's love is that if he didn't love us, our life would be easy. We would not experience deeply personal trials to mold us and change us. Life would hold little to no value for us. And so, yes, this is a boot camp to some and a torture chamber to others. How you come out of it and how you learn from it and how you live it depends almost entirely upon your relationship with the Lord. If you don't see miracles in your life, ask to see them. If you don't seek revelation, if you don't feel like you're receiving revelation, then ask the Lord to show you. I know that you will see those miracles in revelation when you ask. I had known this for some time about revelation and that the Lord gives far more than we are aware, but I had not made the jump to miracles, although I probably should have. Miracles are most often revelation that we see rather than just feel. Now, I hope most of you, all of you, that you will see miracles that the Lord has provided in your life. And as you go about your journey this next year, that you will see the hand of the Lord in your life through powerful revelation and miracles. although it may not be until afterwards. Now, until next week, do your part with the Lord to see those miracles in Revelation, and He will most certainly do His.